Hello everyone. So we will be starting our disaster management lecture in a systematic manner. So today our topic will be, as promised in last lecture, that we will be talking about the four basic words of disaster management that needs to be included in your answer writing, so that you can present a well-mannered answer in your exams. So the main thing is that whenever you write a question related to disaster management, you have a lot of things to write, but the main motive is that you should write your answer in a very systematic manner. Means the wordings, the change of flow, everything should be in a systematic manner, and for that you should have keywords with you that you can use them to express a lot in very less words. So our main focus today, our main focus will be on the words like hazard, vulnerability, risk, and disaster. So these are our basic words that needs to be understood in a very good manner, so that we can write a very beautiful answer to score very good marks. So we will start our first word. So our first word today will be hazard. So you might have heard hazard and disaster interchangeably with each other, but the real definition is that the disaster is the actual occurrence of event. Means the event is occurring and there it is having an impact on the society or the people near to it. So disaster is the actual occurrence of event. If I say the earthquake as a disaster, means it has happened somewhere, it might be having some intensity, magnitude, and it will be having impact on a lot of people. But in case of hazard, it is not the actual occurrence of event, but it is the potential event. Like Delhi is hazardous to earthquake, means the Delhi is prone to earthquake, that the earthquake hazard can strike Delhi at any point of time, and it will be having impact over the people. It will have damage to property, it will cause injury and damage to life of people and all. So hazard is not the actual occurrence of event, but it is having the potential to cause damage, whereas the disaster is the actual occurrence of event and it is having impact on the people surrounding it. So you must note the difference between the two. So hazard is used for an potential event that may cause damage. So the word hazard has its origin from the French word that is called hazard, or the Arabic word ajar, which means chance or luck. So as I told you earlier, that it is a potential event, so it is chance or luck that you might get struck by a hazard or not. That may take the form of disaster. So it is chance or luck. And the main keyword here is it is a dangerous condition. Yeah, hazard will always be dangerous. Let it be volcano, let it be earthquake, and it will have the potential. Means it has the potential to cause. It has a capacity to cause you injury to life, damage to property or environment. So these are the keywords here relating to hazard. It is a dangerous condition of event. It is a potential condition which has the capacity to cause injury to your life and damage to property and environment. So let's have a definition to write in your exam, in your answers. So I will dictate a good definition for you of hazard. So take out the notes from it, write down. I will be dictating the definition of hazard. So write down: hazard is an occurrence having potential of causing injury to life and damage to property. Potential of causing injury to life and damage to property or the environment, and in many cases it can be anticipated or estimated. In many cases it can be anticipated or estimated. anticipated or estimated. So the main thing here is you can anticipate some of the hazards, like you can anticipate a flood. The flood is not a sudden phenomena, like it will come in 1 or 2 hours. It is a very long phenomena. It may take up to weeks, up to months to have a larger impact on the society. Like drought. Drought is also a very long-term phenomena. Earthquake, volcano are short-term phenomena, more of, but the floods, the droughts, the hailstorm are kind of long-term phenomena which can be estimated through the technological advancement and interventions. Okay, so the word hazard might be clear in you. It is a potential condition. So just have a look on the keywords, please underline it. The keyword is potential, injury to life, damage to property, environment, and estimation. So let's move on the next topic, the types of hazard. The hazards are of various types, so we need to understand the types of hazard. So the first type of hazard is geological hazard. So the word geological means related to land. So here the hazard will be related to land. So the land can have two types of hazards. One can be endogenetic, TIC, genetic. Please manage with the handwriting. And exogenetic. So here in this case, endogenetic means in the interior of Earth, whereas the exogenetic means on the exterior of Earth. So interior of the Earth can have the conditions like earthquake. So earthquake will be an exogenetic, will be an endogenetic hazard. The earthquake may also call tsunami. So tsunami is also an endogenetic hazard, geological hazard, and it can also have volcano. So earthquake, tsunami, volcano are included in endogenetic geological hazards. Geological means due to land, related to land, and here endogenetic means interior movement of the land. So here we include earthquake, tsunami, and volcano. Whereas in case of exogenetic, we have massive mass movements. Massive mass movements like we can have avalanche, we can have landslide, we can have surface collapse, urban area collapse, a road collapse, a bridge collapse, etc. Like you might have seen, like some few months ago, we have a case in Kolkata where the bridge collapsed due to poor construction. There are many cases of road collapse where the road sinks down due to weak pavement below it. There are cases of mine collapse. So these all are included in the exogenetic collapse. Okay, so these are included in the exogenetic collapse. The next category of hazard is hydrometeorological hazard. Hydrometeorological means weather related aspects. Here I am not saying that climate related aspects, but here I am quoting that it is weather related aspects. Weather changes day to day, so it can have it is a more of a day to day phenomena where we can have hazard of hydrometeorological nature. So what all can be included in hydrometeorological hazards? So we can have floods, like our rainfall, heavy rainfall for a very long amount of time can cause accumulation of water in a large area, which can take form of floods, like in Kerala. Like the Kerala floods was the resultant of heavy rainfall in a very short period of time, and the water was not able to percolate down, and it increased the surface runoff, which further took the form of floods. So the flood is also included in hydrometeorological hazards. Cyclones, storm surge, thunderstorm, hailstorm, drought, desertification. Okay, I will dictate slowly. So please write down: floods, cyclones, storms, thunderstorms, hailstorms, hailstorms, drought, सूखा पड़ना, desertification. Yeah, desertification is also included here. So desertification, wildfire, the recent incidents of wildfire of Australia, Amazon, these all are included in hydrometeorological hazards. Wildfire, mine fire, extreme temperature conditions, sand and dust storm. So it was the second category of hazard where we talked about hydrometeorological hazard. So the next category is anthropogenic hazard. Anthropo means human, so human related aspects can cause hazards. So these are more of technological hazards. They are technological in nature, like exposure to radiation. For example, Bhopal gas tragedy was an anthropogenic hazard where the people were exposed to harmful chemical gases like methyl isocyanides caused the death of thousands of people. They were exposed to chemical gas which caused the death of people. So it is technological hazard which cause exposure to radiation, chemical weapons. Biological hazards can also be there, like coronavirus, COVID-19. It is also anthropogenic hazard where a disease is spreading in a very fast pace and we are not able to control it due to its movement. So we are also exposed to such viruses like coronavirus, which is also included in anthropogenic hazard. So there can be a possible question in a UPSC exam related to anthropogenic hazard where the biological weapon convention and other related aspects can be asked, and how it is more of a disaster management because it is taking the form of epidemic in a very large scale, and the whole of the administration is concerned with it, and the people is also affected on a very large scale. The governments are taking steps like lockdown to control the situation, and other things like anthropogenic hazard can have acid rains. So acid rains is a very good example of anthropogenic hazard, global warming, etc. So I guess all these type of hazards are very clear to you. So geological hazard related to land, hydrometeorological hazard related to weather, and anthropogenic hazard related to humans, mainly because of technological advancements. Okay, so let's revise hazard. Hazard is a dangerous condition or event. We have three types of hazards. So the next definition will be, the very important definition will be vulnerability. So you might have some idea about vulnerability. You might have known about it something. So let's talk about vulnerability. Vulnerability may be defined as the characteristics or the circumstances of a community, system or asset that makes it susceptible to damage or harmful effect of hazard. So please correct it, hazard. So vulnerability is the characteristics or the circumstances. It is a characteristics as well as a circumstance. Means I can explain the circumstances, like you are living in Indore, for example. It is a seismic. It is a very stable seismic area where the chance of earthquake is very rare. Means it's seismic zone 2, very rare earthquake. Means the maximum magnitude of the earthquake might not cross 5 Richter scale. So you are a tourist. You are visiting Manali in the Himachal Pradesh. So Manali falls in very high seismic region, and you are a tourist there. And just because circumstances you are there, you get hit by earthquake, and you are present there. So it is the best example of circumstances where you are a tourist, and even if you are not vulnerable at your place, but because you are a tourist, you are now vulnerable to this disease. So this not disease. So this hazard. So the circumstances is very important in this case. So it can affect the community, system or asset. Like your cars are also affected by earthquakes. So the whole of the system is also affected by the earthquake. So it includes community, system and asset that are susceptible to damaging or harmful effect of hazard. So vulnerability is how much you are susceptible to damage, how much you are susceptible to damage. As the population is continuously increasing, people are living in coastal areas near to rivers, in the flood plains of rivers, so they are more vulnerable to hazards as compared to who are living at more stable areas, having proper conditions to live. So you might have read about the theory of settlement. So what are the conducive situations for a human to settle? So nowadays we see more of economic factors, like peoples are living in slums at a very large scale just because of economic factors, where they are more vulnerable to these type of conditions, more vulnerable to hazards. So we also have The types of vulnerability, in case the types are very more, so I will explain one by one. So the first type of vulnerability is economic or material vulnerability. Here, the first type is economic or material vulnerability. So you can guess from its name only that economic means related to money related aspect is here. So it is because of inadequate resource ability. You are vulnerable because you lack resources. For example, nowadays due to coronavirus, a lot of people are affected, but the most affected people are those who lacks resources, like the poor people, the laborers who are dependent on their daily wages are more vulnerable as compared to rich people. So here the basic keyword is inadequate resource availability. Those who will be having less resources will be more vulnerable. So economic vulnerability talks about the inadequate resource availability. So I think it might be clear to you. Inadequate resource availability directly concerned with economic vulnerability. The next thing is social vulnerability. So you might be thinking about the man and woman, but this is not the case. Here we are not talking about the gender. Here we are talking about the social vulnerability. Here we are talking about the society. Society. So let's start with the example that you met an accident at some place, and you are just lying over that place, and some 4 to 5 men come, they snatch your purse, they snatch your mobiles, they further harms you, and they'll just leave from there. So you are not able to trust your society that they will help you. The society is causing more damage. They are causing more damage. They are snatching things from you. So you are socially vulnerable because you are not able to have trust on your society. Means the society is not that good enough to be trusted. So it is causing social vulnerability. Means in case of a disaster, the society is disintegrating. Means you are not able to believe. You are not having belief on your society. One more example that you are in your home, your parents told your neighbor, your parents are not in a condition to tell your neighbor that you are alone at your home, because they think that the neighbor can cause some damage to you, can cause some harm to you. So you are not trusting your neighbor. So it is a well example of social vulnerability. Okay, so social vulnerability. The next is ecological vulnerability. Ecological vulnerability, that you are causing damage to environment. The environment is continuously damaged, and at the same time the environment is not able to protect you. It is a little bit confusing, but I will simplify it. Like in case of flood, you are causing damage to environment by deforestation. You are cutting trees. So whenever the flood comes, the pace of water is not slowed down, and it is not able to percolate down to the surface. So the more amount of water will try to flow downstream, and it will cause floods in the adjoining areas. So ecology is more concerned of you are causing damage to environment, and the environment is unable to protect you. Means the environment is not able to reduce the effect of hazard. Rather, it is increasing the effect of hazard. So it is a ecological vulnerability. Next is organizational vulnerability. The organizational vulnerability means there is lack or absence of organization at the grassroots level. So like there is fire in a place. So you call the fire station that we have a fire in the place. Please come soon. But the reply comes from the fire station that we have no fire engine now. The fire engine is not able to reach you. So the thing is, you are prone to hazard, but the organization is not available there to help you. Means there is lack of organizational structure, and they are not able to help you. So this will cause the organizational vulnerability. So the organization or the administration which has been at place to protect you is itself not able to do something for you. Like they are not having proper trucks, they are not having proper pipes, they are not having access to water to reach your place. These all are included in the organizational vulnerability. Just focus on each and every word of vulnerability, so that you will be using each and every keyword in your answer, so that it will look much more in a more systematic manner to get more marks. So next is educational vulnerability. Educational vulnerability here in this case is the people lacks the education about the disaster, like the coronavirus COVID-19. The government is trying to make aware people about the do's and don'ts related to coronavirus, what you need to do, what you don't need to do. They are continuously trying to make aware people through media, through social media, through people, through mock drills, each and everything. They are using every part of administration to make people aware about a disaster and how to cope up with it. So it is educational vulnerability. Those who are not educated what to do or what not to do, where to use masks, how to use hand sanitizers, where to wash hands, it is more of educational vulnerability. So there might be a question in your mind that there are very educated people who are violating the rules. So they are educated, they are not educationally vulnerable, but they are attitudinal or motivational vulnerable. So their attitude is not conducive at all to support the system. Like they have the willingness, to lack of willingness to act. They don't want to act. They want to go against the system. They have no desire to change. They just want to create nuisance in society. So it is attitudinal or motivational vulnerability. So one fine example of attitudinal or motivational vulnerability can be that whenever you are passing by from a street and you are seeing a mock drill of earthquake. So you will just laugh at them that what the fools are doing. Means people will make mockery of them that what they all are doing. So it is not a case of mockery, but it's a case of that what you are trying to learn and where you want to implement. So people in our country mostly don't focus on mock drills. They're just willing to face the real situation in real life, and they will become heroes at that point of time. So here we have attitudinal problem that we don't want to get ready for any disaster or hazards. So we just want to do at a peak point of time where there is need of exact support. You are trying to find the things where all the things are. So it is of attitudinal or motivational vulnerability. So next is political vulnerability. So political vulnerability is lack of access to power or lack of participation, political representative or participation. Means that you are not very well represented at the central level or at the state level or at the political level to get out of the situation. Means you are not politically very well represented, and it is causing vulnerability to the people of your area. Next is cultural vulnerability. So it is a very sensitive issue, but still I want to point it out that you might have seen in Visarjans that at the time of Visarjan, people go near the ponds or the lakes or the rivers to have the process of Visarjan. But at the same time, you might see a lot of people drowning in the rivers or lakes just because of their wrong attitudes. So it is a kind of cultural vulnerability because where you can have avoided a situation by taking precautionary steps, but you are not prepared well enough. So it will fall under the more of cultural vulnerability. Also, one example that in case of Delhi, where after Diwali we have seen very much pollution. So it is more of cultural vulnerability. At the same time, where you think that in Diwali, if you will go green, if you will adopt the method of go green, where you will not burst the crackers. So what impact it will have on the environment? Means if one person is not bursting the crackers, it will have no impact. It is of cultural vulnerability where you are having wrong attitude regarding that. So it is more of that. Please manage with it, no problem. So next is physical vulnerability. Physical vulnerability. So here we will include the physically weak people. Where the people who are physically weak, who can't run, like old age people at the time of earthquake, you are not fit enough to run from that place. So they are more vulnerable. So it's a physical vulnerability. At the same time, the structures which are not conducive according to a disaster are also physically vulnerable. It is not only including the people, but it is also including the people at the same time. It is also including the structures. So the next word will be the risk. Risk. So as you have learnt about the hazard, hazard is a potential, vulnerability. Vulnerability means how much you are prone to that disaster, whereas the risk, here comes the risk. So risk is a measure of unexpected loss due to hazard event. Means hazard is there to cause you, hazard is there to cause you damage, cause you harm. The vulnerability means how much you are open to that harm, means how much you are vulnerable to that, how far the hazard can cause problem to you, and their multiplication will give you a risk. So how risky is you at that condition? This is the main important thing here. So risk is the expected loss due to hazard event occurring in a given area over a specific period of time. So risk is more of how much risky your conditions are. Like you are living in the floodplain of a river, and there is hazard of flood. So vulnerability is also high, hazard is also high. So there will be risk, will be more risk will be there. So if you want to reduce the risk, you have to reduce the vulnerability. At the same time, you have to reduce the hazard. Okay. So if you are living in a low seismic zone, at the same time you are having very much earthquake conditions for any mishappening. So you are at a very low risk position. So it is very important for our disaster management. So risk is a measure of expected loss due to hazard event occurring in a given area over a specific period of a specific time period. So I will just dictate a small definition for you. Just write down. Risk is the expected loss of life. Expected loss of life, property, or disruptions, or socio-economic or other important activities. Socio-economic or other important activities. So the risk might have been clear. So our last keyword for today. So the keyword is disaster. Okay. So here disaster. So let me explain what a disaster is. So as I earlier quoted that it is the actual occurrence of event. The event has occurred now. So it is the actual occurrence of event and how to deal with it. The main thing is that. So we will write two definitions. One according to disaster management 2005 and other according to the United Nations. So just write down. I will dictate it for you. So definition according to Disaster Management Act 2005. Definition according to Disaster Management Act 2005. Let's write down. Disaster is a catastrophe. Disaster is a catastrophe or a grave occurrence from a natural or man-made cause. From a natural or man-made cause, by accident or negligence, resulting in substantial loss of life, damage to property, and environment, and is of such a magnitude, that is beyond the coping capacity of community affected. It is very technical definition. Community affected, very technical definition. You need to learn this definition to write in the exams. Just underline some keywords. Occurrence means it is a real occurrence of event. The event has just occurred. It can be natural or man-made. Both conditions, natural or man-made. It can be caused by accident or negligence. like the Bhopal gas tragedy was caused by negligence. Substantial loss of life, damage to property and environment. Environment is also included here. Many times we do not include environment, but environment is equally important as at par with life and property. Here the general last keyword is coping capacity. Means if you are able to cope with it, it will not be a disaster. You can manage the disaster, but if you are not able to cope with it, it will cause a grave damage to you. So just underline these keywords and just focus on these keywords. So we will write the next definition as per the United Nations. It is a small definition. So write down. I will dictate it for you as per United Nations. So disaster is the occurrence of sudden or major misfortune which disrupts the basic fabric or normal functioning of society. Basic fabric and normal functioning of society or community. Society or community. So these are the two definitions of disaster. Disaster is the actual occurrence of events. So our last topic for today's video, it is the causes of increase in risk and vulnerability. So you might note that the risk and vulnerability is constantly increasing in today's world. As we are moving towards a much more technologically advanced society, the risk and vulnerability is equally increasing. So here we need to know what are the factors related to increase of risk and vulnerability. So the very first factor is population increase. As the population is increasing, the more and more people are there, and that they are getting located at very vulnerable conditions, like million plus cities like Delhi, very overpopulated, Kolkata, Mumbai, Chennai, very overpopulated. People are more and more settling on seismic areas, more on flood plains, more in drought prone areas. So the population increase is equally important for increase in risk and vulnerability. More the population increase, lack of resources mean there will be more vulnerability. The next is environmental degradation due to anthropogenic causes. So as due to technological advancement due to human, we are seeing deforestation, faulty agriculture practices, overgrazing, mining, urbanization. So these are all constantly increasing the risk factor, and people are becoming more and more vulnerable. The next factor is increased industrialization and urbanization. So first you need to understand about what is a rural world. In case of a rural village and a rural population, thus the population is much more dependent on agriculture. So if a person is more dependent on agriculture, there will be the people will be settled in a very far distance. Means there will be less concentration of people in a short area. But in case of industrialized society, there will be a large number of people living in a small area. So more concentration of people in a small area, more urbanization, there will be more risk and more vulnerability. So concentration of people in a small area causes more risk. Poor condition of people in these areas. So in case of urbanization, everyone is not living in a very well furnished manner, well fashioned manner, or in a very well. Everyone is not living in a very well condition. So the people who are living in these areas are in a very poor condition, very poor condition. So they might be exposed to sewage waters, they might be exposed to fires. There can be a lot of poor conditions related to that. The next is cultural practice. So the cultural practices also makes the people vulnerable more highly prone to risk. Like in case of Diwali falls in the winter season where the movement of air is very low. As the movement of air is very low, there is more and more concentration of smoke in those areas. More concentration of smoke in those areas. So it is also causes the people to become more at risk and vulnerability. There is also gender inequality. So we will link it with migration. So if there is more migration, the more male population will shift to urban areas. So there will be less young males or less males in rural areas. So in case of any mishappening, the woman will be in charge. The woman alone is able to cope up with the situation, but she is having the responsibility of oldest people and the children. So she will be trapped in the condition of risk and vulnerability. She will be facing the disaster directly with an old man and a child. So it will make her more at risk and vulnerability. Next is war and civil unrest. So in case of war and civil unrest, the people, the administration is not able to work in a more efficient manner. Also, the people are not cooperating with the system. So it causes more and more problem in case of relief and preparedness. And next is the lack of proper preparedness and planning. Just having a agency to deal with disaster management is not enough. We should have proper mock drills, proper planning, proper preparedness, proper resources, resource allocation, and mock drills of these things. The second last is neglect of developmental issues and lack of integration of disaster preparedness in developmental plan. For example, the housing board colony is making flats, 2 BHK flats, nearly 100 2 BHK flats in the society. But none of the building constructed by housing board colony is as per the earthquake guidelines. So they are vulnerable to, they are more vulnerable to these hazards. So neglect of developmental issues, at the same time neglect of integration of disaster preparedness in the developmental plan also increases the risk and vulnerability. And the last is lack of bylaws or their implementation. Okay? So if there are lack of bylaws or their implementations, we will be more vulnerable to these conditions. So in today's lecture, we have talked about the 4 keywords that were hazard, vulnerability, risk and disaster. I tried to explain you each and every word. I did the definition of their definition. So please go through them once again, and if you have any doubt, you can WhatsApp me on my number, no problem, or you can send me a message no problem with that. So just go through these words, try to think and link the current situation of coronavirus with these words. And in next lecture, we will be talking about the disaster management and preparedness of India. So just go through this video, and if you have any problem, just give a call to me. So that's all in this video from my side. Take care and be safe. Thank you.